So, hello, everybody, and welcome. Yes, welcome back here at BSN Network. Today, welcome you back here at BSN Arc. This is the BSN Arc podcast here today. It is Thursday, October 15th. Everybody's having a good day so far and a good rest of their day yesterday. It is, in fact, Thursday. There is no Thursday Night Football on tonight, though, due to the scheduling changes of the NFL close to the weekend. Big night last night for baseball. Dodgers absolutely dominated the Atlanta Braves. They absolutely just destroyed them, ran all over them, steamrolled them, to say the very least. The Dodgers crush the Braves to avoid a 3-0 deficit. Dodgers are down 2-1 in the series, and the Astros are down 3-1 in the series. The Dodgers play today. Rays play today. Rays are up. Braves are up. Those four teams play today. Rays going for the series win. Braves trying to make it 3-1, and the Dodgers trying to even the series up. So a lot of good baseball back on today. But I'll tell you what, another packed sports day again. Obviously, with all the news going on surrounding Le'Veon Bell, surrounding the NFL, just a lot of news on again today. But in fact, we are going to talk about a little bit of a different topic today. We're going to go through the Yankees season recap. So here are the topics. We have the Yankees season recap. I'm going to give you 5 positive takeaways, 5 negative takeaways, and there's a couple takeaways I didn't put on there just because I could take 10 of each and put them in there. Little takeaways, like the little ones, this player played well, this. But I try to find overall broad good team takeaways, what they did. We'll do that kind of Yankee season recap, kind of just give you a recap. They had 5 positive takeaways, 5 negative takeaways, and I gave you, 6 or 7 questions going into the season. So going into the off-season, there's around 6 or 7 questions Yankees have facing. What will happen to LeMahieu, Sanchez, Happ, and Paxton, things like that. We'll kind of give it to you that way, tell you why I think it was a positive takeaway, why I think it was a negative, and in the questions, and, kind of just questions. And I'll tell you, I think, what's going to happen to that player. Then we have the Le'Veon Bell rumor / Bills, Dolphins, and Chiefs. Multiple sources tell me that the Bills, Dolphins, and the Chiefs are the front runners to land Le'Veon Bell. It will come official either later today or definitely tomorrow is what sources say. So it looks like that Le'Veon Bell is going to find a new home quite quickly. Obviously, he got released from the Jets Tuesday. Yesterday was quiet. Yesterday was a bunch of projections. Where could he land? What could happen with him? Kind of that stuff. Then today, he came out, said, and then everybody's saying this, the 3 teams that the Le'Veon Bell, and one team confirmed it. Sean McDermott of the Buffalo Bills did confirm they have talked to Le'Veon Bell. So the Bills, Dolphins, and Chiefs are all the teams that are in the picture to land him. The other 2 teams are the Steelers and the Patriots, but they seem unlikely according to most recent reports. So we'll talk about all that. I'll tell you who I think he's going to go to. And then we have the MLB playoffs to wrap it all off. Talk about last night's games, talk about today's games, and all that good stuff coming up on the podcast. So with all that being said, this is the BSN Arc podcast, and let's get right into it. So the New York Yankees ended their 2020 season a little over a week ago. As a matter of fact, I could actually find it right here. They ended their season the 9th. It's the 15th. So actually, tomorrow's a week from when they ended their season. So the Yankees did, in fact, end their season. They lost to the Tampa Bay Rays. We all know this. I kind of just want to give a run through. They lost to the Tampa Bay Rays 2-1 in the final game. They lost 3-2 total in the series. They lost 3 games to 2 in the series. They got to 5 games. Couldn't win the 5th one. Yankees finished their season out. The Rays are now in the ALCS and so on and so forth. You already know that. So the Yankees, there was a lot of stuff to take away from this season. First off, the Yankees had it was a very interesting season for the New York Yankees. I mean, it was very interesting in general. I mean, it was one of these seasons where, for a while, and you know how I was on this podcast, for a while there, I didn't know if baseball was going to even be played this year. I didn't know if baseball was going to even be played this year. I didn't know. I don't think we all really knew. I don't think we really all knew what was going to happen with sports to begin with. When we were in May during like the prime of all this, where there wasn't like really anything open, when we were in May, pretty much when we were sitting in May, it was pretty crazy. Like, there was nothing on TV. I mean, there was no football. Obviously, football's not on May either way. There was no football, no basketball, no hockey, and no baseball. Hockey, basketball, and baseball are all on during that time. Football didn't miss much. Football starts in September. It started in September. So either way, football wouldn't have been on in May, though. And then you didn't have college basketball. The college basketball would have finished up before that anyway. But either way, college basketball get canceled. You follow what I'm saying. So it was definitely an odd season. And I was a person to say on this podcast many, many times, I didn't really know if there was going to be a season. When you're sitting in those days, June-ish and stuff, you don't really know what's going to happen. Sure enough, there was an MLB season that was, in fact, played. The MLB did, in fact, play a season. So that in itself is, I guess, a positive takeaway because, you didn't know what was going to happen when you were sitting here when this whole virus thing was just starting. We had no clue what sports was going to happen. They all got put on pause. There wasn't much action in sports. It wasn't like it was the off season where moves were going to be made. It was definitely odd. So a positive takeaway to kind of start this off is that they did, in fact, play a season. They played a full 60-game season. Luckily, the Yankees were not one of the teams to have an outbreak, so luckily the Yankees played all 60 games, didn't have a problem having an outbreak, although they did get into some scheduling conflicts due to teams that had an outbreak and it affected their schedule. But overall, the regular season was pretty smooth for the New York Yankees in regards to the whole odd season type thing. The 60-game season was smooth. You might be wondering what's not smooth. The St. Louis Cardinals didn't have a smooth 60-game season. They were out for what? I think they didn't play for what? 23 days or something, I think. That was not a smooth season. The Miami Marlins was not a smooth season. Miami Marlins started off very rocky. Was not a smooth season. Yes, they made the playoffs, but overall wasn't smooth. Cardinals was not smooth. Yankees was pretty smooth. Although we ran into some bumps in the road due to losing games, I'm talking about how odd the season was. The Yankees had a pretty smooth season in regards to, there was no outbreaks. There was, we got through it, we played the 60-game season and we got done with it. And then obviously the Yankees went on to go to play the playoffs. So overall, a positive takeaway was there, and it was an MLB season. So I'm going to give you 5 positive takeaways, 5 negative takeaways, questions heading into the offseason. Now, I'll tell you what, I only put 5 takeaways on here for each. I could have put 15, but that would just took too long. So I could have put 15 takeaways for each. I literally could have. And I'm not trying to say that's how good the Yankees were. That's how bad the Yankees were. There is. I mean, there was a lot of negatives this season for the Yankees. There was. I mean, I'm not trying to be mean, but the Yankees they were far from perfect this year. During that big losing streak, most of those games were negatives. There was a lot of negatives to take from the season. Some moves in the ALDS were negatives. So I'm going to give you some takeaways. Here we go. Positive takeaways. We'll start off with the 5 positive takeaways first, then go to the negatives, then go to the questions heading into the off season. So here we go. Number 1. Here's a quick positive takeaway. Kind of obvious. We made the playoffs. I mean, I know you might think this is stupid, but we did. We made the playoffs, right? You might think, oh, that's obvious. That's not really a positive. It is a positive. We made the playoffs. I mean, there were some teams out there that missed the playoffs. There were some teams out there that, barely squeaked in. The Yankees were kind of one of them, and that was a negative takeaway. Was, one of the ways we finished off the season. I'll read you that later. I'm not going to spoil it now. But the Yankees were, in fact, we did make the playoffs. I mean, that's a positive in itself, right? There was teams out there that didn't make the playoffs. I mean, look, the Mets, another New York baseball team, they didn't make the playoffs, right? There was teams out there that didn't make the playoffs. The Yankees were one of them, though. They did make the playoffs. So that is a positive, right? We were able to, even though we did run in through some bumps, middle of the season, 40, 45, 50 games into the season, we ran into that big bumpy streak where we found ourselves sitting at 500. Then we got back on a 10-game win streak, then so on and so forth. Then we ended up finishing 33-26 or 33-27 overall, and it was just one of those things. But what I'm trying to say is the New York Yankees did, in fact, the New York Yankees did, in fact, make the playoffs. We had a lot of good games we played. We played very well during a lot of these games. The Yankees had a lot of positive games this season. We had a lot of those big games early on in the season, 8-1. I mean, you look at it, you look at that. Yankees don't have that start to the season. The Yankees might not make the playoffs. That 8-1 start they had at the beginning of the season, Aaron Judge, Stanton, Voit, all them hitting bombs in the first 9 games of the season. We don't have that start. The Yankees might not make the playoffs. So the Yankees did in fact make the playoffs, and that is a positive. It might be a kind of a like a no duh positive, because making the playoffs is a good thing, but it's a positive. We'll go from there. Yankees made the playoffs. Next up, Yankees finished over 500. I mean, Yankees were sitting this season and this is a positive technically. You might be thinking, like, of course the Yankees are going to finish above 500. That been middle of the season, the 21 and 20, the 22 and 21, 22 and 22, that got rocky. There was rumors that the Yankees were not gonna finish over 500. So us finishing over 500, the way we ended the season is a positive. The way we started, if you would have told me we would have only finished over six games above 500, I would have thought you were absolutely crazy. We started 8-1, we ended very bad. We only finished above 500 by 6 games. Yes, we got over 500, and that is a positive. Because I'll tell you what, there was many times this season I was sitting there watching the New York Yankees questioning if we were going to finish over 500. Because there was a lot of times in that Blue Jays series, Orioles series, there was a lot of times the New York Yankees looked flat out horrible. Looked flat out, this is not a playoff baseball team. We were able to turn it around, and we were able to make the playoffs. But finishing over 500 was a positive. There were some teams that didn't finish over 500. Yankees were one of them. Good hitting, good pitching, won us some key games late in the season that were able to really squeak us right over. Is 6 games above 500 ideal? Not really. If you would have told me the Yankees would have finished 6 games above 500 after our first 9 games, I would have thought you were crazy. 6 games above 500 wasn't the most ideal thing ever. But the fact that we finished over 500, the fact that we had a winning record, the fact that we made the playoffs are 2 positives to take from the season. There you go. Yankees finished over 500. Next up, Garrett Cole pitched well. I mean, this is where you really get into the in-depth positives, right? You had the 2 obvious ones, finished over 500, made the playoffs. Garrett Cole pitched well. I mean, Garrett Cole pitched well. There's not many other ways of saying it. He's our big money guy. What, $320 million, 9-year deal. He was the big money guy. He lived up to it this season. He wasn't insane. He wasn't Hall of Fame Garrett Cole. He wasn't remarkable where he wasn't amazing. He was very good. He had a couple very, very good games. What I should say is he was very, 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 very good. He wasn't he could definitely pitch better than what he pitched this season, but for his first season in an odd season, very, very, very weird season, if you would have told me Garrett Cole would have done this at the beginning of the season, I would have been perfectly fine with it. Finished it with a 2.82 ERA in the regular season, had a lot of strikeouts, strikeouts per 9, was very good, was top 5 in the MLB in strikeouts per 9 innings, was very good. You talk of not even just forget about the regular season, talk about what he did in the playoffs. Great game 1 against the Indians, great game 1 against the Rays, great game 5 against the Rays on short rest, pitched well that game, let up 1 run through 5 2/3. It was Chapman that blew it late in the bottom of the 9th or the bottom of the 8th inning, right? You talk about it. Did he pitch well in the postseason? That's what we got him for. Not only just the regular season, we got Garrett Cole for the postseason. He pitched well in the postseason, very well. Was our best pitcher in the postseason. Better than Happ. Better than Garcia, because Garcia barely pitched. Tanaka really struggled. He's actually on one of the he's on this sheet too. But Garrett Cole, He did everything the Yankees fans wanted him to do. He went out there, had a couple really nice 7-inning, 12, 13 strikeout games. Had a couple really nice games where, he had a couple games where he was perfect through 5 innings. He had 1 or 2 of those games. High strikeouts. Had a couple games where he was striking out like 9 through the first 4 innings. A couple big strikeout games. A couple long games. A couple games where he really just shut them down. 1 run, 12 Ks through 7 strong. He had a couple of those big games. He really did. Gerrit Cole did. Obviously, his winning streak did get snapped, but what the Yankees got him for, we gave him all this money to pitch on short rest like he did against the Tampa Bay Rays. He did that very well. Yes, we did not win that game. That is not Gerrit Cole's fault, though. Hitting was not good, and Chapman blew it late. So you talk about it, the Yankees did, in fact, Gerrit Cole did, in fact, I think, live up to expectations for the New York Yankees. And I think in a normal year, he would have been even better. That's what I'm saying. Cole could pitch better. He did very, very well. But I'm actually giving him a compliment. Cole could definitely be a little bit better than what he was this season. He pitched amazing this year, but definitely Cole, you even ask him himself, he could still be he could still be a little bit better. He still has a little bit, he could still be a little bit better. There was a lot of games where he was pitching into the 7th inning, he had no run support. It would be like he would let up 3 runs through 7 strong, and our hitting would score 1. There was a lot of times there where he didn't get run support. But Gerrit Cole, he did what the Yankees wanted him to do in the playoffs, pitched well, and he did what the Yankees wanted to do. He pitched well in the playoffs, in the regular season, was a big key on the reason why they almost squeaked out in the ALDS. Gerrit Cole pitched well, and for his first season as a New York Yankee, I would consider it a success. Yes, he did not win a World Series. He's coming to the New York Yankees to win a World Series and help them go to a World Series. He did not win that, but on a personal level, I would say Gerrit Cole was very successful this season, and I would say that is definitely a positive for the New York Yankees and Gerrit Cole. That's my third positive. Number 4, Giancarlo Stanton bounce back season. Stan had a bounce back season. I understand you could talk about the injuries. You could say, all the injuries. I understand. He had an injury, was out for, 20 games. I get it. It frustrates me too. I can't control him getting injured. It's not just Stan. It's a lot of other players. Judge was out for a little bit. Stan was out. Glaber was out. Urshela was out. Urshela was only out for a couple of days. Who else was out? I'm sure there had to be more. There had to be way more. Oh, well, Paxton, he had to go on the 65-day DIL. But if you follow what I'm saying, there was definitely players on the New York Yankees. It wasn't just Giancarlo Stanton that got injured. The Yankee did, in fact, have a bounce-back season. Giancarlo Stanton had a bounce-back season. Look at the numbers. This was by far his best season as a New York Yankee. Had an amazing playoff. Just a phenomenal playoff. 4 straight playoff games he hit over a home run. Just a remarkable playoff for Giancarlo Stanton. Was the Yankees' best hitter in the playoffs by far. Giancarlo Stanton had an amazing playoff, a very, very, very good regular season, had a lot of big plays in the regular season, came up in big moments and really converted. One of the reasons Yankees got him, has not been able to do that, did it this season. And I will tell you what, I do think some of the pressure was laid off of him because there was no fans in the stadium. Fans are very, very hard on Stan. I've been patient with him. It's tough to play when you're injured. A lot of people talk how bad he is. It is very, very, very difficult to play when you're hurt. He has been injured. Can't do anything about that. It's not like he's going out there playing horrible every single day. It's because he's injured. He's off the IL, comes back on, off, back on, off. If he's steady, and he was steady for a good amount of the season. And look how good he did. He was steady for the playoffs. Look how good he did. Giancarlo Stanton, bounce back season. That's a positive for the Yankees, too, because he did not opt out of his contract. He opted in. He will take the money. He had I think it was 3 years into it, he had an opt-out. If he opts out, then I think he becomes like an unrestricted free agent or whatever. He did not opt out, so he is going to finish out his contract unless the Yankees trade it, which I don't think they will, especially after how successful he was this season. He is staying with the Yankees, so that's obviously a positive, too, for the next 2-3 seasons. You could build off of this. Had a good year this year. Hopefully has another good year next season. Stanton, bounce back season. Great to see. Then, finally, we have DJ LeMahieu who wins batting title. I understand this is another positive takeaway. I know this could be on an individual level, but he did. He won a batting title. And this is one of the guys that is a question going into the regular season. As the New York Yankees, this is big to have a guy like LeMahieu win a batting title. This was big for the New York Yankees' confidence. You could trust him big time. You could really trust LeMahieu in those big moments in big games. Trust him to go out there and get you a hit. This guy, I think, is one of the best pure hitters in all the league. He won a batting title. Very, very good for DJ LeMahieu. First player in the history of the MLB to win 2 batting titles in the AL and the NL. Players have done it in both. Players have done it in the NL. Players have done it in the AL. They have not done it in both the AL and the NL. It's almost like, let's just say LeMahieu won 2 with the Yankees. Players have done that. They've won 2 in the same league. LeMahieu is the first ever player to win it in both leagues. He won in the National League when he was with the Rockies, won one now when he was in the American League with the New York Yankees. So, obviously, that is very good. Another thing, that helps the Yankees make their move on if they want to keep him. It really does go to show you, and it's a good thing for LeMahieu, too. Because it's not a guarantee he's coming back to the New York Yankees. It's not a guarantee. But what he's done with this team, it's not a guarantee he's coming back to the New York Yankees. But even later on in the season, even it does go to show you, too, that, if other teams are looking at him, they now know, too, how good he is. Won another batting title. Had a remarkable season. For a while, there was hitting over 400. Or over, 400, I think. For a little bit there. He had an amazing season. Amazing season. And LeMahieu comes up at bat, and you can almost expect a hit every single time. And a very good for the New York Yankees. It makes that decision. Let's just say he had an average year this year. Goes into free agency. It makes that decision, do we pay him the money, that much harder. Or that much easier. Now that he had another great season. Because this dude can really hit. He was good with the Rockies. Wasn't anything crazy. Comes to the Yankees, insane. Yankees know. They got to pay up for him. So just LeMahieu had another good season. Some other takeaways. I didn't put them on here, but some other quick ones. Voit, 22 home runs. Led the league in home runs. I really believe that's big for Voit. I think it's a good. I think it was good for Voit. It's good for the Yankees. A lot of those home runs were big in games. Helped out the Yankees with a lot of those home runs, so that was another positive. Urshela had another good season. He proved that last year was not a one-year wonder. This season, he came out there and played just as well. Had another great, I think defense was much better than last year. His defense last year was very good. I think he even put it on another level this year. So it was very good for Urshela. Had another good hitting year. Obviously, you saw Game 2. The Indian series hit that big grand slam that really shifted the momentum in that game to the New York Yankees. Obviously that was huge. Had a big year involving the fielding wise. Had a couple big plays in the playoffs. Urshela proved that last year was not a one-year wonder. Came out this year, played just as well. I already talked about Voit. Higashioka, he's stuck in the minors for a long time. Came up this year, really made a big impact. He really did make a big impact and really helped this Yankees team in so many ways. He makes the Yankees make a decision at the end of the season and in this offseason. He made that decision of Sanchez or Higgy more difficult with the way he played. Just kind of those are the positives, if you would say. Judge too. He had another good year. He had another good season. Kind of just another positive. But I really wanted to hone in on these because I really do think these are special. Stan bounce back is very good. It is very positive for New York Yankees to show. Stan showed a lot of what he showed with the Marlins this season, especially in the playoffs. And same thing with LeMahieu winning another batting title. That's a record for the MLB. That's never been done. That's history right there. So I had to put that on here. But all in all, the Yankees, there was a lot of positives to the season for the New York Yankees. But there was also a lot of negatives, and we're going to get to that right now. So here are the negative takeaways of the 2020 season. I don't like to talk negative, but it is a part of the sport. There are good things that you're going to have to take away from the season, take away from a game that are negative. There's going to be positives and negatives from any game in the league. Not everything's a positive in sports, not just baseball and sports in general. Not everything's a positive. So there are negative takeaways. Here are the 5 negative takeaways. Like I said, the first 2 are kind of obvious. They're right there. They're kind of okay, they're kind of just They're there, and kind of just, if you follow what I'm saying, they're obvious, right? They're negatives. They're negatives. The first two, for a regular baseball fan, the second one might be a positive for you, but for the Yankees and how much we were hyped up this season, it was a negative for us. So here we go, negative takeaways. Number 1, lost in the playoffs. I'm in the New York Yankees, lost in the playoffs. Now, I'm not saying, I actually should have worded this better. I'm not saying we lost, meaning we lost a couple games. Meaning we lost, our season was done. We should have won all the way through and got to the playoffs. I'm not saying we had to go undefeated. If you follow what I'm saying. Anyway, you get what I'm saying. We got sent home early, right? Yankees fans, beginning of this year, you look at this roster, Judge, Cole, Stanton, Torres, Urshela. Gardner had a very good year last year, just couldn't seem to do anything this season. You look at this roster, you look at the lineup, you look at the, pitching isn't great, but you look at Cole leading that, it makes it almost 10 times better. You look at the bullpen, who had an okay year this year, Ottavino, Holder, Chapman, Green, Britton, Canely, who ended up having to get Tommy John, right? You look at it, this was a World Series team. The fact that we did not make it to the World Series, the fact that we lost in the ALDS is a negative for the New York Yankees. This is a team that was supposed to, at the beginning of the year, a lot of people said it, this was a team that was supposed to go all the way. This was a team that was supposed to thrive in a 60-game season because of how good they are. A lot of people thought they could very well get off to a quick start. Yankees did just that. They slowed down, and they slowed down at the wrong time. They slowed down towards the tail end of the season, and I feel like that kind of led a little bit into the playoffs. We lost in the playoffs. Losing in the playoffs like the Yankees did is never good. Losing in the playoffs like the New York Yankees did is never good. Yankees lost to a rival. Yankees lost to a team, too. What makes it even more negative is the Yankees went 2-8 against them in the regular season. The fact that, we still, in the playoffs, we had them. We could have beat the Rays. The fact that we still lost to them is just so frustrating. So, obviously, it was definitely frustrating to see the Yankees go down in the playoffs yet another year. This is a team that hasn't made the World Series or won the World Series since 2009. It's so frustrating as a fan, I'm sure as a player too. They don't make the World Series, has not even got there. We haven't even gotten there. At least get there. If you don't win, at least you got there. I'm sure I wouldn't have that mindset if they lost in the World Series, but at least get there. Yankees haven't been able to get there. This was their year again. People thought they would really strive in the 60-game season. At least get there. They couldn't get there once again, and they fall out early. That's a negative. This is a team that's every year, with how much talent we have, I just feel like we just can't get it done late. And the Yankees did that this season. They just couldn't get the job done. Lost in the playoffs, that's a negative. Next up, we finished just 6 games above 500. Now, I know this might sound like one of these greedy ones, one of these cocky ones. And I don't mean to be like that. Believe me, I don't. I know you might be thinking oh, you're complaining now you finished over 500. Here, let me explain my first, because I'm sure some of you, not all of you, I'm sure some of you are probably you still finished over 600. Or not 600, 500. You still finished over 500, and you're complaining. I'm not complaining. It was a little bit of a negative for the New York Yankees the way we finished. Okay, I could reword this and say finished poorly. I could reword that and say finished poorly instead of just finished over finished just over 500. I could have reworded it, but either way, it kind of sounds the same thing. Finished poorly, because the Yankees didn't technically, we finished obviously on a loss, but finished poorly, we still made the playoffs. So that still would kind of sound a little greedy, I do hold my sports teams to high standard. Not always. The Yankees, I hold them to very high standards. I had the Yankees winning it all this year. My other sports teams, not so much. Jets, I'm just hoping we can win one game, and that's it. One game, then you could take baby steps. Jets every year, low standards. Nets, low. Rangers, low. Nets now this year are high. I think the Nets could very well make a title chase. But back to the point with the finish just 6. I'm never satisfied with my sports team until they win a championship is what I'm trying to get. So finish just 6 games above 500. The reason I think this is a negative for the New York Yankees, I understand. There's probably a lot of you sitting at home right now looking at your team and they finished completely below 500. I understand. If you're a Mets fan watching this, I understand. I get it. I know you're like, oh, you at least you finished above 500. Mets didn't do that. I understand. But for a team like the New York Yankees that was expected to do as good as they were expected to do, and for us to only go out there, and the way we started the season, 8-1, Judge at possible MVP, Stanton rocking the ball, Voit rocking the ball, pitching out of the middle of nowhere, pitching insane. How we started the beginning of the season. By the way, one quick thing just popped in my head. Another positive for the New York Yankees was Davy Garcia. We got to see our new prospect, really pitched well. Quick thing I wanted to say. Back to the finish, just 6 games above 500. The way we started the season was just absolutely remarkable. I mean, you had people talking about us winning 40, 45 games about how good we were playing. And the fact that we were still only able to finish 6 games above 500 is infuriating to me. You want to know why? Because the Yankees, if they kept on playing like that, they could have gotten to the 1 seed. And the 1 seed would have been a heck lot easier than having to go and play Tampa Bay. They win. They finished first in the AL East. They might not have to play Tampa Bay until maybe the ALCS. And then the Yankees could very well be favored in that series. The way the Yankees started the season compared to how we finished is just so infuriating to me. We started the season off so strong, but yet finished so poorly. And I feel like our finish was because when we clinched the playoff spot, I feel like those final 4 or 5 games of the season were kind of just us not really caring, doesn't really care. We made the playoffs, kind of that kind of play. But easily we could have still got the 3 seed if we would have kept on playing hard. And that's what frustrates me. How we started the season to the way we end. We finished 33-27. At least finished 38. At least get 38 wins. The Yankees didn't even crack 40. Yankees barely cracked 30. The way we started. That is a negative to me. Because the way we started and the way we finished, complete polar opposites. Almost like you're watching a completely different ball team. And the Yankees, their final 5 games of the season, when they knew they were in the playoffs, they kind of just tanked a little bit. Not tanking purposely, but, they were like, oh, we're in the playoffs, we're going to rest some guys. And that resulted in 4 or 5 more losses than what they should have. So the Yankees, the way they started to the way they finished is just so angry. Makes me so angry because I know this team could have been way better than just 6 games above 500. And that, to me, is a negative. Next up, we have injuries again. This is a negative. Once again, injuries hurt the New York Yankees. This is a negative. Stanton got bit by it again. Judge bit by it again. Glaber and Urshela bit by it. Luckily, LeMahieu, right? Yeah, LeMahieu. He had a thumb injury. He got bit by it. Voit, did he go on the IL? I'm not 100% sure. But Voit, during the playoffs, if you did not know, he was playing injured with a foot injury. So he got bit by the injury. He did not go on the IL during the playoffs. He played through it, but you could definitely tell he did not play that well because he was trying to play through an injury. It's tough to play through an injury. He got bit by an injury. Almost our whole infield literally got bit by an injury. Voit, LeMahieu, Glaber, Urshela. Then our outfield is Judge got bit by it. Stanton, but he's DH. Hicks I don't think didn't. Gardner, I don't think either. But the Yankees still, injuries once again hurt us big time. Especially when the Yankees started to really struggle a little bit, and then Judge went down, and then Stanton went down, and then guys like that went down, and all of a sudden, the Yankees started losing all those ball games, and you're like, oh, here we go again. Injuries hurt us again. And the negative, you could say, that's not the player's fault they got injured. I understand. You could be running the first base and just pull a hammy. That's not your fault. But it is a negative. Injuries are negative. You never want to see a player get injured. So that was a negative. And it impacted us in a negative way. Last year, we were so into this next man up mentality This year with all the virus thing, the minor leagues not really being able to play, there wasn't really that next man up mentality you could really use like you did the year before. So the Yankees, you could definitely tell this year, struggled a lot more with the injuries than they usually did. And luckily, knock on wood, Cole did not get bit by it. It's almost like it's nasty. It's so bad. It's like a little snake. It's almost that goes around a locker room, and it like bites you. And if you get bit by it, that game you're gonna injure yourself. Like, it's crazy. Like I feel like it's only, and this might just be me, I feel like it's only the New York Yankees. Like, maybe other teams experience it too, but even the Jets are going through it. Like, even the New York Jets, like, I feel like it's just New York sports. Like, there's something in the water or something that's, like, causing all these things, because it's so odd. Like, you don't see other baseball teams going through all that. I feel like the Yankees just get drilled. Now, last year was really our first year really getting hit hard. And then again this season. And then what's in store for next season? What's in store for that? Definitely, though, Yankees did get drilled by injuries, and that's not a good thing. That was another negative. Bullpen struggled in playoffs. Now, I don't want to really... I see, this is another one I should have reworded. I had to quickly do this because I had other stuff to do. I had to quickly write this stuff down. So some of the wording isn't probably amazing. I shouldn't have said bullpen. I should have said some individuals in bullpen struggle. There was definitely some bullpen struggle, especially in the playoffs for the New York Yankees, including one main one. That's because it was the one who last pitched and the one who blew the game, was Aroldis Chapman. He was one of the main ones. But all throughout the year, I felt like the Yankees bullpen was a little choppy. It wasn't crazy. It was a little choppy. And it wasn't horrible. It wasn't like it was absolutely horrible. We had to throw our pitchers 8 innings, 8 2/3, and hope that they could just come in and get a swing, get a rollover and throw down. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't like we had to push our pitchers because we didn't want to throw our bullpen. It wasn't that bad. But it wasn't years past. The Yankees bullpen was definitely better. This year, I would say, was more of a down year for the New York Yankees bullpen. Our bullpen wasn't great. And especially in the playoffs. Bullpen struggled in the playoffs, especially. You talk about that game with the New York Yankees and the Rays. The game where, the stupid game where they took out J.A. Happ. That was a bad game. That was a bad decision. Our bullpen ended up struggling because Happ came out of the bullpen that game. He technically struggled. So, our bullpen wasn't very good. Ottavino had a little bit of an iffy season. When the Yankees were going through that losing streak, their bullpen was horrible. Ottavino struggled. Ottavino didn't have an amazing year. Chad Green had a very good bounce-back season. He played well. Chapman was on and off. He had a couple good games, a couple tough games. He was average. Britton was very good. Britton's almost automatic, I feel like, at times. He's very good. Had a very good season, especially with Higgy behind the plate. I noticed he was even better because Higgy can block. And that slider he throws is so nasty it goes into dirt, which is what you want to get a lot of those swinging strikes. Higgy can block those. Sanchez struggled. And I noticed that too in the playoffs. When Higgy was in, Brayton was even on more. So the bullpen wasn't amazing. It wasn't horrible, rocky to the point where, we threw a bullpen and we lost the game. It wasn't that. But it definitely wasn't. There was definitely a couple guys. And I do think Canely, we really did miss Canely. Because you want about 5-6 solid guys in the bullpen. Yankees only had about 4 of them this year. And you got to rely on more toss-ups, like a Holder. Like, is a Holder going to be able to go in there in an 8th inning and close it out? Or are you going to have to rely on Green on short days rest or something, right? The Yankees, I feel like, had to go through all that a lot this season. So the Yankees bullpen struggled, especially in the playoffs. But bullpen struggled in the playoffs, because I did write that on here. Then next up, negative was bad decision-making. If you know what I mean, Game 2 of the ALDS. The Yankees made, I think, in my opinion, one of the dumbest decisions in a while I've seen a sports team make. And they did, in fact, take out Davy Garcia and bring in J.A. Happ, who ended up blowing that game too, and very well could have blew the series. You start Davy Garcia and play. Now, this is one of the more what-ifs. You're never going to really know what would have happened. But I would have felt much more comfortable with Garcia out there than Happ. Happ, it's almost like you're asking him to lose the game, putting him out there. Bad decision-making. I did not think that was a good idea. That whole Happ thing, I understand that was a huge play. In my opinion, that was not a good idea. Another thing that was bad decision-making was in the top of the 8th, I'm pretty sure it was, when the Yankees pinch hit for Gary Sanchez, or Higgy. They took out Higgy, brought in Mike Ford. I like Mike Ford a lot. I think he's a good first baseman. I think he's got incredible power. I like him a lot. This is nothing against Mike Ford. What happened in that game, though, was they brought in Mike Ford against probably the Rays' best closer, Castillo. Okay? He's had an amazing season. He threw the ball to Ford. Ford struck out. Bad decision on Aaron Boone. Not just because of Ford struck out. When I saw Ford walking up there, asked the person. When I was sitting next to the person I was watching the game with, I turned to them and said, this is not the right decision. Even if he would have hit the home run, in my opinion, still was not the right decision. You don't bring a guy in against the Tampa Bay Rays' best reliever, bring him in. He's had barely any playoff time. Bring him in, first at bat in like a month and a half. Bring him in when he's cold, barely got any swings. Throw him in there and let him try to get a hit. You should have brought in somebody who's fresh, like a Clint Frazier, a guy who's gotten at bats within the past 3 days. Right? You should have brought in a different dude. You shouldn't have brought in Mike Ford. Nothing against Ford, but when a guy's been off for about a month and a half, you can't expect him to just throw him out there and get swings in. I mean, he hasn't seen live pitching in forever. He's seen soft toss by the coaches, not 95-mile-an-hour fastballs, though. You can't just throw him in there. That was another bad decision by Aaron Boone. So the New York Yankees, by far, had made bad decision-making, especially in the playoffs. Those two decisions hurt us big time. So, the Yankees, bad decision-making, in my opinion, was another negative. So, the negatives were lost in the playoffs, finished just 6 games above 500, injuries again, bullpen struggled in playoffs, bad decision-making. Those are some of the things. And I know I'm already on 41 minutes. I know. I said this was going to be a long topic. That's why I didn't do 10 each, because I could have went on and on and on. So now I move on to questions heading into off season. So there are a lot of questions the Yankees face heading into this 2020-2021 off season. There's definitely a lot of questions the New York Yankees face, and if you say that they don't, that is not a very good statement. The Yankees face a lot of questions, and I wouldn't say unknowns because I want to technically consider these unknowns, but there are questions heading into the offseason. As a matter of fact, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 7 questions. I'm going to try to go through these quicker because we're already getting in the 42-minute range. I think we just hit 42 if I could see correctly. So I'm going to kind of go a little quicker on these. I'm not going to take 20 minutes on these, or else then it would be like an hour and 20 minute long podcast, and I don't mind if I talk for an hour and 20 minutes, but I just whatever. I'm going to keep this a little short and sweet because I do want to spend a lot of time on the Le'Veon Bell thing too. I might shorten that up a little bit too, but anyway, I try to keep it around an hour to 50 minutes. I don't try to go like over an hour by like, if I go hour and 2 minutes, it's not the end of the world, but I don't like to do like an hour and 10. It's too long. But anyway, questions heading into off season. So here we go. Questions heading into off season. Will Tanaka be resigned? Will Masahiro Tanaka be re-signed? There's a lot of talk around Masahiro Tanaka. He's been with the Yankees for 7 years now. Just really did not think that. I just don't think Tanaka's all that good of a pitcher. He was very good in the playoffs, but was not very good this season in the playoffs. I don't know, something about Tanaka. Personally, I think for the Yankees, I'm not sure if they are. I'm not going to really answer all these. I'm not personally sure if they are going to re-sign him. I just don't know. I really just don't. You know, he's very good. He can be very good at times, but he's never been an insane pitcher, and the only times he's been very, very good was in the playoffs. And if this is a Yankees team that doesn't make the playoffs, Tanaka's not really your guy to really, be this stellar star of a pitcher. I just don't know if he's that big of a star to give him all this money to let him stay here. I mean, if I can get this up here, I just don't know if Tanaka is really I just don't know if it's the right decision to keep him in the Yankees uniform, or let him stroll into free agency and see if a team can make a gamble. I mean, this is also a guy that's already 31 years old. He's not getting to the tail end of his career, but he is 31 years old. So it is a dude that, he is 31 years old. So it definitely is a guy, that already signed a 7-year contract with the Yankees. Definitely is a guy that, if you sign a 3-year deal, it's going to take him up until he's 35 years old. So he's definitely getting to, not the tail end of his career, but he's near the middle of his career. So he's still got more gas left in the tank, but it's not like he's a youngster we want to sign him to. If the Yankees re-sign Tanaka, I would only give him like a year or two deal. I wouldn't sign him to another bulky 6-year deal again. I would only sign him to maybe like a year deal. A year deal I think would be perfect. Like a year deal, keep him here, see what he does, and if he's average again and doesn't do much in the playoffs and we don't win another World Series, then you say, okay, goodbye. Something like that. I don't think you resign him to another 6-7 year deal and to keep him there for the rest of his career. I just don't think that's the right move, but it is also New York Yankees. They know a lot more than we do. Next up, we have will LeMahieu be re-signed? This is another one, another big question. I personally think he will, but also in the same way, I don't. I think LeMahieu is going to look for the money. I know I know he really likes the city of New York. He really likes playing for the New York Yankees. But for a guy that has been that good, and Brian Cashman does not spend that much money on players. I know he did it with Garrett Cole, but you look at his history. He's never been one of these guys to spend all that much money. He's always kind of kept his money a little to himself. He's never tried, he doesn't spend that much money. It's true. I mean, you look at some other GMs. Cashman does not spend that much money, which isn't a bad thing, but at the same time it is. Because sometimes you have to spend money to get big players on your team, right? Like if you want to get Cole on your team and you want to really make a push for the World Series, you're going to have to spend top dollar. Cashman doesn't always do that, and that's why the Yankees don't always come out with the biggest studs. LeMahieu's a stud. This is a guy that's insane. I think the Yankees re-sign him. I want them to. You have to re-sign Tanaka or LeMahieu. Do I think the Yankees should re-sign Tanaka? I'm not sure. Do I think the Yankees should re-sign LeMahieu? Sorry, I did not answer for Tanaka. And do I think the Yankees should re-sign LeMahieu? Yes, I do. Will the Yankees add another pitcher? This is one of these other burning questions, too. In regards to the pitching, there's a lot of pitchers out there on the market that definitely could be added, trying to find new homes. Trevor Bauer is one of them. Insane pitcher, leader for probably the NL Cy Young Award. Yankees, I think, should add another pitcher. We need another ace. Cole and whoever else, and then Severino is just nasty 3. That would completely make over your pitching staff, and you could really make a push with that. Outside of Cole this year, who was really solid for us? Paxton wasn't. Happ wasn't. Tanaka really wasn't. Garcia, who only played, had only 6 starts. So, outside of Cole, really nobody was strong for the New York Yankees this year. Monty pitched well, but even him, he didn't get that many starts because the Yankees misused him too. So, will the Yankees add another pitcher? I think yes, and we should. Or actually, I think we should. I don't know if we will, because knowing Cashman, he'll mess up on the pitching again. What will happen to Sanchez? I personally think the Yankees are going to get I personally think the Yankees are either going to keep Sanchez or they're going to try to. I think they might just release him. I don't really know if they're going to be able to find a trade. I think the Yankees actually might will. I think the Yankees are going to trade him or keep him. You might think that's obvious, but release. I don't know if the Yankees would just completely release him, let him walk into free agency. I don't know. The Yankees might have to trade him. I do think you're going to get something good for him because I still think he's a good player. He just needs a little bit of teaching. He needs to go out there and be a better defender and be a better hitter. I do think Sanchez will be gone. No, I personally do. I just think Higgy, he really showed how good he is. Your top ace really likes Higashioka. When your best player, you're pretty much Cole, like Cole, for example, one of the face of the franchise, right? You have that big thing going on, right? Involved with Cole and everything like that, right? Higgy likes Cole. Cole doesn't. Higgy and Cole are really close. Sanchez and Cole, they just can't get on the same page pitching wise. I think you got to keep Higgy, right? I think they will. What will happen? What will happen to Happ and Paxton? I personally think them two are gone after this year. I don't think Happ returns. I don't think Paxton returns. I think that's pretty obvious. I think it's simple. Although knowing Brian Cashman, I wouldn't be surprised if he makes another boneheaded decision. Will Herman return as a Yankee? Yes, this has been one of the hot topics. Domingo Herman with the New York Yankees. Will he return as a New York Yankee? There's rumors about it. There's a lot of stuff on it. I personally think he might. I wouldn't be surprised to see if he does. I think what a lot of people don't know, though, because of what he did was really bad. People don't know if they really want him around in the organization in case if he does. I personally think he will, but there are definitely rumors about that. I do think he will. Clint Frazier to Brett Gardner in left field. I think Clint Frazier will play left field. I think he should. I think Brett Gardner retires. I think Brett Gardner retires after this year and or joins another team for maybe like a year contract. Gardy really showed rustiness this season, really showed, I'm not trying to be mean, but showed his age. He was aging very, very, very well with the New York Yankees. This year was his first year. You can kind of tell, this guy's getting to the tail end of his career. He's played very well with the New York Yankees, the only remaining guy in that 2009 World Series team. I do think he either retires or goes signs like a small one-year deal with another team. I think Clint Frazier will take over that spot. Will Clint Frazier get traded? That could be another question. I didn't put that on there, but there's definitely rumors about that too. I think if Gardy retires, though, you have Frazier right there. So, that is my Yankees season recap. 50 minutes into the video. I had this all planned out. I thought this was going to take 40 minutes, and I think I talked too much about the positives and the negatives. I think I took too much time on that, which isn't a bad thing, but I wanted, that's the problem, is when I really only make hour podcasts, you can only do so much in an hour, and I have a lot to say a lot of the times, and when you can only say, when you only have an hour, I could sit here and do a 2-hour podcast, but it would take a long time to upload in the software I use and stuff. I just don't know if it would really be able to be successful. So the New York Jets released Le'Veon Bell a couple days ago, Tuesday to be exact, and there's rumors popping out everywhere. I'm going to kind of go quickly on this because we are at the 50-minute mark. But there has been a lot of rumors swarming around Le'Veon Bell and the teams that have wanted him. So from what I have heard that the Miami Dolphins want him, their Bills want him, Dolphins want him, Chiefs want him. There was a report that just came out 2 hours ago from a guy on Twitter. I've heard the Dolphins are definitely interested in Le'Veon Bell and want to sign him. It's going to depend on what Bell wants more. If it's potential role location, Miami would seem to be the leader. If it's a Super Bowl contender, Chiefs, Bills would stand out. Exactly. That's the big deal. And that really is, I think, what comes down to this decision. I purposely read that tweet because I did like that tweet. I think that was a good idea. It was a good tweet. If it's a potential role or location, meaning if Bell wants to increase the role like he had in Pittsburgh, if Bell wants a role like he had in Pittsburgh or anything close to that role he had in Pittsburgh where he was getting a ton of carries a game, getting a ton of yards, was getting the ball a ton, if he wants that role, he should go to Miami. If he wants to be a Super Bowl contender and contend for a Super Bowl, that would be the Bills and the Chiefs. Now, I'm not saying the Bills are going to go ahead and win a Super Bowl, but if you're in the playoffs, everyone's a contender for the Super Bowl if you're in the playoffs. Bills are probably going to make the playoffs. Chiefs are obviously contenders. Dolphins are not. Dolphins are 2-3. They're in a rebuild. So if he wants an increased role like he had on the Steelers, he should go to the Dolphins. If he wants to be a contender, make the playoffs, have some playoff football like he did with the Steelers, he should go to either the Chiefs or the Bills. Now, the Steelers are unlikely, and the Patriots are unlikely. Although the Patriots yesterday were the team to get him. He talked with the Patriots yesterday. Those talks ended, I guess. Patriots don't really want him. Steelers are unlikely. The three teams remaining are the Dolphins, Bills, Chiefs. So this is the Le'Veon Bell sweepstakes. Whoever gets him, gets him. I personally think Le'Veon Bell is going to want to go to a winning team because I think he realized how bad the New York Jets were. I think he wants to win. I think he wants to be used correctly. All three of these teams have very good coaches. Brian Flores, good coach. Sean McDermott, good coach. Andy Reid, obviously very good coach. All these three teams have very good coaches. That's what I think Le'Veon Bell wants. He wants another very, very good coach like he had with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He did not have that with the New York Jets. He did not have that at all with the New York Jets. He had far from it. I think he wants to go to a team that's going to be solid. Going to be a solid team, right? You go to a team that's going to be, a solid team, going to be a contender, and definitely going to be, fighting for that championship. I think that's why he wants to go to possibly the Bills or the Chiefs. I personally think he's going to go to one of these three teams. They've talked about the Steelers and the Patriots. I think they're out of the question. They're not going to do it. I don't think they're going to win it. I personally think, from what I've heard, that the Chiefs are one of the more likely teams. I don't know about the Chiefs, though. I think it might be the Chiefs, to be honest. I do think the Chiefs will get him. And Sean McDermott had confirmed the Bills' interest about this all. But what is funny with him currently trying to sign with one of these three teams is these three teams that he wants to sign with play the Jets within the next 3 games. These 3 teams, all the Jets have to play these 3 games within the next 3 games. So the Jets play the Dolphins. He wants to go to the Dolphins. One of the teams is the Dolphins. Jets then play the Bills. One of the teams is the Bills. Jets then play the Chiefs. One of the teams is the Chiefs. The next 3 opponents the Jets have are 3 teams that Bell is most likely to go to. It's kind of funny. I don't know if that's set up or not, but it's kind of it's pretty funny. I personally think I just have an odd feeling he might go to the Chiefs. I just don't know. I just feel like he might. And I know that, obviously there's that whole deal about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Will he get that induced role? We don't really know. I think he will either go to the Chiefs or I think the Dolphins. I don't know about the Bills. The Bills might be. I don't know. I just think he wants to go to a Super Bowl contender or a team that's going to give him a reduced role. The Bills might, but they have Singletary. I don't know. Something about the Bills, I just don't know if they'll get him. They might. Sean McDermott did confirm that they're going to try to do their best to get this team the best they can be. I don't know. Wherever team he goes for, I just hope that Bell is pretty good with them. Because I do like Bell, and I hope that he's good, and I hope that he proves everyone wrong about that. He shows everyone that was gays. So then we're going to be. I do personally think that the New York Jets will, in fact, or not the New York Jets. Bell will either go to the Chiefs or something like that. I think something like that. So it will definitely be interesting. Now we move on to the baseball games. We're at 56. Perfect. So, something about that. And Bell said he was either going to sign later today or tomorrow. So, by the time this pod's uploaded, he could be signed, but I did this pod way before he signed, obviously. So, by the way, Ty Lue hired as Clippers head coach. Alright, so last night's baseball games were pretty good. The Astros beat the Rays 4-3. Dodgers beat the Braves 15-3. Today, Rays, Astros 5:07 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Dodgers, Braves 8:08 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I think the Rays win and the Dodgers win. Kershaw is pitching tonight, obviously, with the back spasms. He got over those. So that's my same pick. Sorry about that. It's sorry about that. I just kind of quickly zoomed through those. But back to the quick Bell thing. I think what the thing with Bell is I don't know. I don't know what Bell wants. Does he want to go to a championship contender, or does he want to roll like he did have in Seattle? Does he want to roll like he did with the Steelers? And that is 20, 21, 22 carries a game. Or does he want to roll maybe close to the Jets? Not horrible as the Jets, where he was getting 11 a game. Does he want more of a 17, 18 carry game and be on a contender, or be on a team that's still rebuilding and get 22, 23 carries a game? It's going to be one of those things. So I do think it's going to definitely be interesting. It's going to come down to that. But it will be very interesting next couple of hours here. Let's see what happens with Le'Veon Bell and his new destination he's going to. So we're going to see Le'Veon Bell in New Jersey by, I would assume, tomorrow. Whoever he goes to. If he goes to the Dolphins, though, I don't picture him playing against the New York Jets. Well, he still has to play against the Jets. He'll play against them at least one time. I don't think he'll play against it. If he signs with the Dolphins, he probably won't play against the Jets this weekend. He'll play against them the next time they play. Because the Jets play the Dolphins on Sunday. If he signs tomorrow, he gets there, he would maybe have not even a day of practice. He wouldn't be able to learn the playbook and go out there and play. He might be suited up, but he probably wouldn't play. And as for If he goes to the Bills, he would definitely be able to play against the Jets next week. And then if he goes to the Chiefs, it's kind of funny. If he goes to the Chiefs, then he'd be playing the Bills. Like, all these teams connect. If he goes to the Bills, he'll be playing the Chiefs. Interesting. And if he goes to the Chiefs, he'll play the Jets that next week, after the Bills week. So, it's going to be interesting. I don't know. If he goes to a team that's in the AFC East, I'm not surprised that he wants to stay in the AFC East and try to dominate the Jets. That'd be pretty funny. But yeah, so this whole Le'Veon Bell thing is going to be pretty interesting. I definitely will stay tuned. Will stay involved with it. And tomorrow, if he does in fact get picked up, I will talk. See, that's the problem. Tomorrow's already a packed pod. We have game picks, college playoffs. That's the problem. And I don't want to talk about a Monday. I don't know. That's unless he gets signed later on tomorrow after I do the pod and I just talk about it on Monday or something. That could always be an option. I don't know, whatever. But definitely going to be interesting to see what happens with Le'Veon Bell. Tomorrow's on our Football Friday podcast. We'll talk about all the football stuff. Give you the game picks. Give you kind of just a scoop on football, pretty much. Just give you the scoop on football and everything in between. So I'll give you my football game picks and then obviously that kind of stuff. So tomorrow's another packed podcast. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's. I will see you all back here tomorrow. Have a good rest of your day. Hope you enjoyed it. And thanks for watching.